paving and flatwork. Typically, paving, we're talking about asphaltic paving, blacktop like this. And flatwork is concrete. That's typically what it is. Sometimes people say, oh, you mean sidewalks. Well, sidewalks are a part of flatwork, but for the most part, paving and flatwork fall into the same category. So let's talk about this a little. So this is blacktop, this is asphaltic paving. Blacktop and asphaltic paving are actually two different things. Usually blacktop is driveways, residential paving. Asphaltic paving is roadways, highways. Very similar, slightly different composition. But for the moment, let's just say blacktop, everyone kind of refers to it as that as the nickname. For the most part, when it's installed, there'll be a concrete base or a sub base, and then two layers. They'll do the rough coat or the binder course, and then they'll do the top or the finish course. They'll do it in two elements. In fact, you might have a new cul-de-sac construction, for example, that they're getting near completion. They'll do the first course, but they'll wait. Construction vehicles will go in and out, materials will go in and out, inspectors will go in and out, and the last thing they do, the last thing they do before they're off-site and done, is the final course. So they'll do it in two courses. Now that top course in New York is usually 2 inches. It could be 2.5, it could be 1.5 inches. Usually it's 2 inches. So when we look at paving, the first thing we want to say is, what's the age, what's the condition, what are the recommendations and issues? Now that can fall in several different categories. First of all, we have general paving like this. You can see it's starting to wear. We're starting to see some of the white stone, and we're starting to see some of these voids. In good condition, but it's going to need some love soon. So what I'd recommend for this right here is pretty soon we're going to do a sealing. And a sealing, S-E-A-L-I-N-G. All the sealing is going to do is give it a nice coat of paint. And anytime you go into a newly sealed parking lot, it just feels good to drive on. It's nice and soft. This is how this industry really kind of took off. When it started to compete with concrete, it didn't last as long, but it was cheaper. One of the things it did, it went around to cities and towns and it paved certain areas for free. And people then drove on it, and everyone knows when you drive on a new asphaltic paved road, it's just real smooth. Then when that city or town had to do some paving work, guess what? They'd say, hey, can we have that black stuff that we saw on the roadway? That's really nice to drive on. So for this could probably get a sealing, that kind of paint coat, if you will. Quick, cheap, fixes all if you don't have any damage. Okay, what about this? All right, well, this is a crack. Cracks happen naturally. Water gets in, freezes, expands, sun bakes it down, driving, salt, sand, trucks, etc. We're gonna have to seal this first. We're gonna have to seal this crack sealing, then we're gonna seal the entire thing. So you're looking at two different efforts, sealing and a little more attention first, crack sealing. Okay, what about if we have, like over here, a dislodged area. This we're going to treat like a pothole. This is going to need a little more attention. It's not actually down yet like a true pothole, but you can literally see the last 2-inch hot mix is gone. It's this right here. So this is going to need a patch, that's going to need a crack seal, and that's going to need a seal. Now the tough part of all this when it comes to costing for our property condition report is you're really looking at 3 different things here. Now if this was in really, really bad shape, what you could do is you could remove all of this, scarify it down to the base course, and then do 2-inch hot mix everywhere. Much more expensive, rate fix, long-term, much better way to go. Spend more now, get more life out of it. So for the most part, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use costs we have in our tables, and we're gonna come up with, what do I think an effort would be to do this parking lot, crack sealing, pothole, and sealing the entire thing when it's done. And then the last piece, after that's done, is striping, this. So it doesn't break down to a unit cost if you put them together, which is how the ASTM format is set up. But we break it down by those different pieces. Best case scenario, sealing. A little worse, crack sealing. A little worse, pothole. And the worst case, remove everything, new 2-inch hot mix. Another thing we're also going to look for is drainage. Now, I see they have pretty good drainage here. We're always going to talk about what is this connected to. Is it private or is it to a utility? A utility would be connected to something that goes off-site or to a sump nearby. An on-site or private would be big catch basin, naturally percolates down. This happens to be a catch basin, it naturally percolates down. What do I do over years and years and years and years when this gets clogged with just sand and leaves and everything like that? You could vacuum it out, and if that perforation's gone, you can actually poke some holes from above, or a company that does it, and give yourself a colander to drain that water through your pasta again. That's really what this is trying to do. Collect, percolate. So this is asphaltic paving. Typically in New York, 5 to 7 years, you'll get out of a seal coat. Typically in New York, 20 years, you get out of a new 2-inch hot mix. That gives you a little bit of idea. Now, if you do a new 2-inch hot mix, are you done for 20 years? You're not. You're still gonna have to come back and seal. But I can guarantee you, if we did a new 2-inch hot mix, in 6 years, we'd only have to come back and seal. We should not have to do another 2-inch hot mix, or literally a replacement of the top coat until 20 years from now. So in contrast, we have poured in place concrete. Now this poured in place concrete here is a sidewalk. Concrete's typically 4 things: sand, stone, cement, and water. The cement and water do the chemical reaction, and the sand and the stone, they go along for the ride. Like Han Solo and carbonite, they get frozen in place for the strength. So what happens is, we pour concrete or cast concrete, it comes out like oatmeal, you let it cure or dry, and then it's what we know and love. Now in New York City, for example, your sidewalk concrete is dictated by the Department of Transportation. It tells you how thick it needs to be, 4 inches. It tells you welded wire mesh that has to be in there, sub-base, etc. And the reason that we have these here, there's 2 different kinds. That's a joint. It's between what we call a flag, which is a 5x5 section of concrete. And that's done for 2 reasons. One, we put joints in where it's going to crack. Concrete will crack. And when it does, we want it to crack between those 2 flags. So that's one. Second is we have an expansion joint, which has a pliable material, so it allows the concrete to move. The difference is, if you see that black rubber material, that's an expansion joint. We want that to be a shock absorber. If you don't see that material, then it's for the crack to form there, so that when we replace it, it's at least controlled. How long does this last? 50 years. 50 years, that's our typical EUL. Now that could vary, how much traffic you have, what your weather elements are, but for the most part, it's 50 years. And when we do replacement, we look at condition, age, and we'll do just flags at a time. If I were to look and see it, a building had 50 flags along the sidewalk, I might say, well, I think they're gonna have to do about 25% of those in the next few years, and then another 25% in 8 years, and I'd come up with some numbers, and then using our cost per square foot, that's how I'd estimate. Now, of course, I don't exactly know. We could have 3 horrible winters or 3 mild winters. That's gonna have a determination on how my costs go. I can only go off of what I'm forecasting using averages. It averages to 50 years. If it's 45 years old, we're gonna do something in year 5. So that's a little bit of the difference between asphaltic paving, pros and cons: lower cost, quicker install, doesn't last as long, and poured in place concrete. You might have your preference, but you can see how both kind of fit into the landscape of what we do, both driving, parking, and roadways. Thanks for watching.